observing hijab when they come out of the room, so that the father and the brother, when they see her, she's still in hijab. I don't see what the problem with that is. But I still respect those parents if they are a bit cautious, if they're a bit concerned, if they're a little bit uneasy. That look, even if you're wearing hijabs, I'm still uncomfortable. Sometimes something wrong can happen. You know, we live in a world, people get molested and these kind of things happen. So I still respect those parents if they want to be extra cautious and maybe they don't want to put their daughter in that situation. But strictly speaking, from an Islamic perspective, I don't think that there would be any issue here, right? I'm not an imam, by the way. I always make the disclaimer. I'm not an imam. I'm not an alim, right? But if they're observing the hijab, then it would be no different than you go to school, you go outside on the street, there's men there, they're not your brothers and your fathers, but you try to keep a hijab and you keep a bit of a distance from them. And, right? So. But I wouldn't condemn their parents, you know, because the parents they're being careful. You know, they're thinking about it, right? Even now, my son is 16 years old, and if he wanted to sleep at another friend's house, and if I didn't know that friend very well, right? Even though it's my son, he's a boy, he's 16, still I know that I will be a little bit uneasy. I know his mother will be concerned. That, well, you know, but we don't know the father that well. We don't know. Things happen, right? And then years later, then we find out, oh, the stories are all over the news, isn't it? Watch CBC News. And it's full of men, not just women, men in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And they're saying, when I was 16, my hockey coach raped me. 16, he's a young man. You would think maybe he can fight. But no, I was 18 in college and my football coach, he molested me. These are men, grown men crying. So I understand that why parents would want to be a bit extra careful with their daughters, you know. Yes, sir. My wife's two of her nieces visited from London, England, just this past month. Yeah, so one of them is maybe 16, and one of them is like 12, and they're both religious. They wear the hijab and everything. But I told the Bassam, I'm going out. I'm gonna go on a short trip, you know, to Turkey. It was an excuse to get out too. But I was also thinking about the fact that even though I know her nieces well, they wear hijab, even in the home, they would have wore hijab around me. But we're bumping into each other in the kitchen. We're sharing the same washroom. They're young ladies. We're sharing the washroom. I thought it's going to be uncomfortable. Let me get out. You know, it's okay. I'll take a 2-week trip to Turkey. I'll enjoy myself. And they'll have more privacy and they'll be more comfortable, right? So I do understand, you know. I do understand. It's all about balance. Life is all about balance. Those same parents, though, they should be careful not to say no, no, no to everything either. Otherwise, you're going to make life very difficult then for your children, right? They have to have an outlet. They have to have some fun as well, too. So you have to try your best then as parents. Oh, by the way, here's a little tip. You can take it or leave it, right? Part of my parenting philosophy, especially when my son was younger, was that even young guys, remember this, inshallah, you'll be dads one day, right? For every no, there has to be a yes. I'll explain. For every no, there has to be a yes. So when you tell your kid, no, I'm sorry, that's haram, you can't do that. Now, but what's the alternative? Did you give them some other alternative? So say, no, you can't do that, but you can do this instead. How about this? No, so I don't want you to watch that movie. You can watch this movie instead. Right? You can't have the Big Mac, but you can have the Gladiator burger. You know what I'm talking about? So give them some halal alternatives, you know. Because it can't just be no, 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 no. Then they grow up and they become very resentful sometimes. Oh, my religion it straight-jacketed me and it was so this, that, you know. So try to have that balance, you know. What are other tough questions where think of other things like atheism, Christianity, Hinduism, other religions, other ideologies, feminism. We can try to share some thoughts about any of these topics. You know. Although we've already, I think, gone past the time I was going to do my original presentation for. But if there's questions, let's have some fun. Kevin, what's on your mind, man? Nothing. All right. Okay. Yes, brother.
My friends, like, they agree a lot with, my non-Muslim friends.
Yes.
They agree with a lot of the Islamic ideologies, but something they can't like grasp is like free will. Like.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is a very tough question. I'm just your humble brother here, but I'll share a few thoughts. Okay. Basically, look, like in the Quran, there are enough verses that indicate that we are responsible agents. You know, we choose between good and bad, right? And there are many verses in the Quran about Allah's justice, that He doesn't do any injustice to anybody. So if I didn't have any free will, if I was just programmed to be good, or if I was just programmed to be evil, like a robot, then Allah shouldn't punish me, right, for being bad. If I was just programmed, determined to be that way. If I was just programmed or determined to be good, Allah shouldn't reward me either. I haven't done anything. I'm just a good robot. I was programmed to be a good robot. So clearly we have some kind of free will. We have some kind of volition, right? At the same time, the Quran says in many places, Allah is powerful over all things, right? Time is a thing, so He's all powerful over time. He knows the past, present, the future. He knows the decisions you're going to make in the future, right? So some people see a tension here, that if Allah knows everything you're going to do in the future, can it ever be any other way? Can you ever truly choose a path different than what Allah knows you're going to choose? So these are all these complications. I cannot solve this problem. I cannot solve this tension, but I can still help you. I can still help you. And this is how I would help you. I would say, okay, look, if you have identified this as a problem in Islam, we can call it a problem, but it's a difficult issue. It's right. If you've identified this as what is the solution? What's the solution? If I leave Islam and I astaghfirullah and I become a Christian now, have I escaped that problem? That problem is still there. The problem of what? We're talking about free will versus determinism. That problem still exists as a Christian. I haven't gotten rid of the problem. And Christians have the same debates. There are some Christian denominations, they are very much for free will. There are some Christian denominations like the Calvinists who are very against free will. So they have their own debates because this problem is not easily resolved by our limited finite mind, right? If I become a Jew, I still have the same problem. God knows the future, but I have free will. But how can I ever freely choose something different than what Allah already knows I'm going to do, right? So I have the same problem. So maybe the solution to this is, maybe an atheist will come along and say, the solution is leave all of these religions. Leave these Abrahamic religions or these religions. That's the problem. But no, even if you're an atheist, you still have a secular version of the same problem. You will still have a secular, non-religious version of the same problem. Why? Because if they say the Big Bang is what started everything, let's say the Big Bang happened. It determined everything that happened the next second, right? And then the next second determined everything that happened the next second. And that determined what happened. Are you with me? So we keep on going down that chain until we arrive here. What I choose to say, quote unquote, choose to say today. What you chose to ask me. Did you really choose to ask me? Or was it determined through this causal chain that goes all the way back to the Big Bang? Is it making some sense? I could put it in an easier way. Did you really choose to ask that question? Or was it a combination of how you were raised, how your grade 3 teacher treated you when you asked a silly question, right? Did she laugh at you and say, that's a dumb question? Or did she say, very good question, I'm glad you asked, right? Is it a combination of what you ate this morning, your energy levels that made you ask that question? Did you really choose to ask that question? Or is it all these other factors and variables acting upon you that determines your behavior? So what I'm trying to say is, even if you left religion altogether, you're still left with the same problem. Do we really have free will? And by the way, this is not a theoretical problem that I'm putting forth. There are hardcore atheists, like you've heard of the name Sam Harris. Sam Harris is a big, atheist author. And he's a neuroscientist as well, and he doesn't believe in free will. He doesn't believe that we truly have free will. He thinks it's an illusion. And in the secular criminal justice system, they have the same kinds of debates. Someone commits a crime, it's called nature versus nurture. You may have heard of this. Nature versus nurture. Did he commit the crime because it's part of his nature, or is it because he was brought up that way? To what extent is he really punishable? To what extent should we punish him? How much was nature and versus nurture? This is not about religion now. They're using these terms. So this nature-nurture thing, this is like a secular version of the same tension that exists, in our tradition. We don't know how these two interact. How does Allah's knowing everything interact with our free will? We don't know exactly how that interacts. But this is what I call a necessary problem. Meaning, you will always have this problem. You cannot escape it. You cannot run away from it.
At the same time.
Yeah, no, I just want to follow up with one more thing. Now, sometimes if you're talking to a Christian, a religious Christian, the religious Christian might say, you see how you accept this mystery, this divine mystery? You just told me that free will and predestination, you don't know exactly how it works, but you accept it. Because the Quran talks about both of these things. Well, the Trinity is the same way. The Christian might say to you, the Trinity, the Trinity, the idea that God is three persons. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. It's the same thing. So it's no different. Just like you believe blindly on faith, we Christians also, we believe it on faith. No, there's a difference. There's a difference. The Trinity is not a necessary problem. They can escape this problem by becoming Muslim. There's no reason God has to be three persons. There's no reason. You can escape this problem and say, okay, Qul huwallahu ahad. Allah is one, that's it. You've escaped the problem. But this problem of free will determinism, you cannot escape it, my friend. You are determined to have this problem in your life.
Can I just also
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So just to give you a very simple example of smoking. Okay. There are two issues with smoking. One is there is a law of the land in place that says you cannot smoke in certain places. And then there is science or medicine telling you smoking is harmful to you, right? Will that stop somebody smoking? No, it may not, because smoking, there is an element of addiction to it, which is nicotine addiction, right? But because of the law of the land, even the chain smoker, the smoker who finds it difficult to get through the day without having 10 cigarettes, will have to abide by the law and does abide by the law and will not smoke in a public space where it's stopped, where there's a ban on it. Okay? So what is he doing? He is choosing to obey the law, right? And similarly, so there is a law in place. So in the Quran, right? In the Quran, and there are other smokers who will quit smoking because they say medicine or science has proved that this is harmful to me. So they will make that effort and they will say, you know what? I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to fight this addiction and stop smoking because there's a good reason to stop smoking. So now there's the law, there's medicine and science. What are we doing? We're denying what we want to do because we see some good in someone else telling us what we don't know or what we need to know, right? So we're making a choice. We are exercising our free will to stop smoking in a certain space because of the law of the land, or we are choosing, because of our free will, to stop smoking because it is harmful to us because science tells us so. Similarly, there have been studies which have shown that men are genetically predisposed, they are genetically more prone to cheating within marriage or relationships. So what does that say? Does that mean that they have no free choice or free will? That once a man is married, look, I'll tell my wife, look, science has told me I have no free will in this. Or most men are prone to cheating. Therefore, you have to excuse me. As my wife, you have to excuse me. I am more prone to cheating. I have an excuse, a medical excuse. Therefore, the law can't stop me. You can't stop me from cheating. Does that make sense? No. When you enter a marriage contract, there is a law of the land, okay? There is a law in Islam saying do not cheat. Now, I can exercise my free will and choose guidance, which I know is going to have benefit to it, or misguidance, and say, okay, just because now I have an excuse, I can go this way as well. Point is, are you going to say, I don't have a choice? No, we do have a choice. And that's the first lesson we are taught in the Quran, which is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Adam and Eve, may Allah be pleased with them, do not go near this. Do not do this. Do not eat of its fruit. And then misguidance came from waswasa, right? It didn't say that tree is bad for you, it will cause cancer, or you are genetically predisposed to disobeying one thing over another. No, we're given a choice. And it comes down to another verse in the Quran where Allah says, no man bears the burden of another man, right? So we do have responsibility, and we have choice, and we have free will. It's up to us. Are we going to choose guidance which is beneficial for us, or are we going to choose misguidance, which there's no really strong evidence to support that we can't deny that misguidance.
I think also just bringing to the point of the concept of the greatest gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, which is the ruh. Obviously within the ruh is given inside us akil, which is intelligence, which allows us to judge things which are right and wrong, which allows us to find out and follow the mandate of what God has bestowed upon us to seek the right way. So again, I think it's the mandate even of God, the responsibility of us as humans, given this great gift of ruh and akil, obviously, and we are the only creatures in this great universe that has been bestowed such gifts, will allow us to determine which paths we should take and which we should shun, which we should cast aside, so that we not only live in peace and harmony and beauty of this universe, but also reach the great gift of Jannah later on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
So and obviously, ruh itself is perhaps the greatest creation of Allah. Even if you look at the stars and the universe, the world, the trees, the animals, the greatest gift is ruh, because no other creature has been given this great gift, which inside it has this intelligence.
Yep. Agreed. So before I turn it over to the Bassam, any last questions? Any random questions? Anything? You can think and brainstorm even while she's presenting. Then at the end we can discuss again if you have other kinds of questions. We're gonna break for lunch. Okay, that's a good idea. All right. Okay, so inshallah we'll resume then after that, inshallah.